And I would prefer her not to be.
Yeah, and so what
there.
we're going to do is we're going to teach her how to respond to the leash properly. And we're going to teach her what the leash means. And the good news about it is that you don't move too fast, because one of the biggest problems that people have with teaching a dog to walk is they accommodate the dog too much.
I can't.
Right, and you can't. So great, you know, let's use that, right?
Yeah.
And so now what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have the right tools for her to be able to do that. But that's a minor issue. I mean, it's a 10-minute conversation, and I'll just show you what's going on with that, and it'll be over with. So what we want to talk about now is we want to talk about giving her the ability to know where the boundary is. Right now, as a matter of demonstration, the boundary is between these two rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's respecting it, meaning giving it space, then she doesn't get anything from me, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's no issues, there's no problem. But whenever she disrespects it, or she comes and tests it, or she announces with her body that she's about to go try to make a run for it and everything, then I keep pushing her back. And it's all done so far with body language. And now she's sitting over in the corner, you know, in a few minutes. And so she's staying way back there. And as a result of that, I'm no longer addressing her, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's just a clear communication. But the problem is they won't let me duct tape your mouth shut, because that's what people mess up, is they talk too much. They try to say what it is that they want, and they don't do and show what it is that they want. You know, and if you have mobility issues and everything, something like this, and it could be a cane. Canes are a great way to do that if you ever use one, or a walking stick or something like that. I have
a cane. I've never used it, but I've got one.
So the cane is a fantastic thing to do, because it gives you because the dog doesn't interact with the cane very well. You know, they're not familiar with it, they don't understand it, and until you use it a whole bunch of times and the cane starts to mean nothing to them, they're not going to get super comfortable. Just like this stick, she doesn't understand the stick, so therefore she's going to give it respect, and by respect we mean space, because in the animal kingdom, space and respect are the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's going to be one of your notes. Space and respect are the same thing. That's why I did not let her jump on you. That's why I started to stop that, because if a dog seeks to enter your space without your permission, that means they don't have a lot of respect for you. That doesn't mean that they're actively disrespecting you. They're just, you're just furniture, right? And so the very first thing I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you stop that issue, and we'll figure out what it is that's necessary in order to stop that issue. Is that that you don't get to jump on me without my invitation. It doesn't mean you don't get to be on me. It just means that I decide, because I'm of value, right? And so what I want you to do in this situation, and I'm not trying to be any sort of way about it, is I want you to treat yourself with more value in relation to the dog. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times we treat them as babies. Mm-hmm. They're little babies and everything. And don't be offended by this, but I almost always do all of these lessons with women. Because you guys keep our whole species alive by being ultra accommodating.
I think it's worse when you're grandma age than when you're mother age.
Grandmas are a good 80%. And it's just what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. And everything. I love sending my 2 young kids to the grandmas, because I know that they're going to be treated fantastically, probably a little better than they should, you know. And they generally do come back a little mouthy, a little off the walls and everything, and a little sugared up, and that's fine, you know, because life needs to have a little bit of excess and a little bit of, you know, you need to be a little conservative sometimes. You need to be a little liberal sometimes. There's times when they're appropriate, and that's what we want to discuss, is that, and we're not talking political, we're just talking about the way that we act, you know. Is her having too much access to you is far too liberal, right? And so we just set the boundary. Now the boundary becomes that we have time to snuggle, and the time to snuggle is when I invite you. And if I don't invite you, you don't get to demand snuggle of me as if my opinion doesn't matter, right? Does that make good sense? Yeah. So that'll be step number 1. And you can see that here in a very short period of time, she has the ability to contain herself. And that's what we're not having yet, is the containing of yourself. And that's when you have a well-behaved dog. It's whenever they, come here, girl. Good girl. Now you're going to see, very likely, that you see the don't do it. Don't jump. Nope. Nope.
Oh.
Now, if she starts to be polite and she sits down there and requests your attention, and nope, as opposed to demanding it, then it's very fine for you to go ahead and pet her, right? But that's what we want to start triggering her mind to understand that there's a way to get the things that I want, and it's through respect, not through pushiness, right? And these conversations happen quick. They don't take. I wasn't snapping at you, hon. Come here. Come here, baby. See, this is an invitation, and you see she's coming in. Now that's not fear. That's respect. What in the animal kingdom, whenever you're looking at that sort of cowery behavior, we think of it as humans as fear, when almost always, nope, almost always,
No.
The conversation that the dog is having is like, hey, I'm just a little guy. I'm not a problem to you. I'm not a problem to you. I recognize that you're strong, and I want to be your friend, so I'm going to let you know that I'm not a problem. I'm just a little guy. And that's just regular old dog communication. And they do it all the time. They do it with each other, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean frightened. And that's where a lot of times people mistake that. Is they see that cowery thing. Good girl. Now, if you want to...
Can I pet her?
Yeah, please. There you go. See,
That's
and that's what it is.
girl.
We stop the behavior that crosses a line that we don't want, and we stop the behavior that crosses a line that we don't want, and then let her choose some other options. And then whenever she gives us one that we're satisfied with, then we reward it. We reward it with that pet. Right? And most of the rewards I'm going to teach you guys to use is just going to be pets. I don't really want you giving treats to this dog for a reward. And the reason for that is not because treats are bad, but treats do a very specific thing. What treats, when you reward with food, what it says to the brain, all the way down at the chemical level, is that the action that I did caused me to get this treat.
Oh.
Also, whenever you give food, it has a tendency, almost every time, to increase excitement. And what we don't need from her is more excitement. She's got plenty. We're way over the line.
ADHD,
Right.
big time.
Well, and what she is confused. What she is confused. She just doesn't know how to act. And whenever she does things that aren't proper, she's not getting a consistent no answer from her, from people. There you go. See, that's fantastic. And if she comes over and sits nicely at your feet and everything, please reward that. Now, we talked about food rewards and what they do and why we don't necessarily want them.
I don't use them.
That's
Other
fine.
than I do make her sit if I give her one.
Right.
But I don't.
So that's fine, because what it is you've done sit, and sit is an action, and you give her food to tie the idea with, I said the word sit, you put your butt on the ground, that earns you a treat.
And
That's the appropriate use for that.
She will sit for like me to put on a leash or something like that without a treat. But I do make her sit if I give her a treat.
Yeah.
But and the treats are mostly, I buy things good for her stomach because she has digestion issues. And so treats are usually once or twice a day just to help her stomach.
You're a good girl. You're a very good girl. Yes, you are. Come on.
Jesus, I don't know about you yet.
Well, and that's because I'm acting differently than she's used to.
Right.
And that's fine. I'd like that. Honestly, if she had no concern about me whatsoever, then we'd have a much bigger issue. The fact that she has some concern because I'm acting weird And she's giving me all sorts of respect. She's giving me a whole stick's worth of respect at this point in time, and that's great. That's what we want, and it's not a bad thing at all, right? And she hasn't jumped on you in 20 minutes now.
No.
So and that's just because she did it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a row, and each time I backed her off of it, and so she's going to learn at least that while I'm here, I don't allow you to jump on people, and that'll be fine, and that'll be what she learns now. And then what will be necessary? Nope.
No. Get down.
What will be necessary is for you guys to be able to apply that to other people as well, right? And I'm going to show you.
Typically, it's her and I.
Mhm.
Occasionally, it may be another neighbor, but typically it's her and I.
Good. And
Where
so
the
now that
jumping
you
is.
guys are both on board, we can nip this in the bud, and it will become the standard for her. The normal, regular, acceptable behavior, and there will be very, very few situations where it's not expected 100% of the time, right? And so now she's being a fantastic dog already. You know, she's doing great. And so now we're not in a corrective state of mind, and we want to be permissive as long as she's staying within her boundaries, right? And that's it. And so what we talk about as far as these things is just a whole bunch of that. We just figure out what it looks like and how to apply it. And that saves us from having to go into all sorts of different things. So I do want to talk to you about the other reward, which is what you're doing now, which is petting, right? Petting does a very, very different thing to the brain. Food causes dopamine, and dopamine is a very short burst. It's sugar. It makes you feel real happy for just a minute, and it's attached to an action most of the time because you got to remember they're hunters. So when they get food, that means they did something right.
Oh.
Not that they behaved right, not that they had the right energy. It's that they did something right. If you're chasing the squirrel and you do something that allows you to achieve the squirrel, then it's what you did that made the difference that caused you the dopamine. When you get physical affection, that's a very different conversation, because physical affection isn't a matter of doing, it's a matter of how you are being, right? So it's more about her state of mind, right? Her state of mind is very reasonable right now. It's very comfortable. And so what we do is we pet that. Petting causes oxytocin. I don't know if you guys have heard of that chemical, but oxytocin, whenever they induce women into labor, they give them a strong dose of oxytocin. Whenever women go into labor naturally, their body produces a ton of oxytocin, and it's a love chemical. It is a safety, security chemical, and that's shared with the baby to the point that the baby has this unnatural bond with mom, right? And mom has this unnatural bond with the baby, so that whenever it cries and screams and acts like a fool, you know, in my opinion, you guys have an unbelievable amount of patience for it, to the degree that I probably could never achieve, because you guys have gone through that experience and you've shared that chemical. And what it says to the body is that I'm part of a group, I'm loved, I'm safe, I'm respected, I'm a valued member of this thing, and I'm good. What it also says is that I am being proper right now. Whenever we start to grow up, that chemical still has use. If you have dogs, if you have multiple dogs, if you have one that they will go over and they'll play wrestle, right? And in the process of play wrestling,
No, get down. Get down.
Hey.
Get down.
In the process of play wrestling, they will very often put their mouths on each other, right? They'll bite, essentially.
Yeah.
But they're not biting. Nope. They're not biting. They're just mimicking biting. But what
she does that with me
Right.
all the time.
Right. And so, and that tends to be okay between dogs until the point that a dog realizes that they're not in a balanced state of mind. They're not calm. So I would have two of my dogs would wrestle in the living room, and they would be like, you know, yeah, and they're very gently just put their mouths on each other, and everything's fine. And they can be in close proximity. They can have touch between them because everybody's in the right state of mind. They have the right energy. It's a nice calm energy, and there's nothing threatening about calm energy, right? Now you get a little anxious while you're playing. That's when the boys are playing and everything, and somebody starts getting a little unnerved about something, and then all of a sudden somebody gets punched in the face, and then we gotta start having a conversation of how we play properly. And it's not because of any of the actions specifically, it's because the anxiety makes it not safe anymore. And animals understand this right from the beginning. Like they all understand this. So if your energy is not proper, then whoever is the bigger, more dominant creature and everything rejects you and says you need to stop and you need to leave and get out of my space until your energy's right. Hence the kitchen. So your energy was not right, which is in some circumstances unsafe. You know, you have a cast.
Yeah.
So the energy not being right is legitimately unsafe at times. So we need to learn to control the energy. Now, once you've controlled the energy and your energy is proper, then physical affection tells the brain specifically, I like the energy and the state you're in right now. That's the difference. So we use that physical affection as a tool to help us reinforce. And you can take the most neurotic dog in 1,000, and inside of 6 weeks, you can turn it into the biggest couch potato in 1,000.
Really?
By choosing when you give it physical affection. You don't ever get it whenever you're out of the right state of mind. When you are in the right state of mind, you do. And that's what a mother will do with her litter of puppies. She'll be sitting there, and then one of them will be like, and she'll snarl at it and push it away. And the puppy goes, oh my gosh, what is this all about? And if it doesn't, it's like, okay, I'm going to go for another. And she'll do it again. And she does it over and over and over again until the puppy goes and sits down and like slinches over and says, okay, I guess I'm going to chill out because I can't go have milk now. I can't go be next to mom. And as soon as that happens, it'll gingerly come back in and attempt again and everything. And if it comes with the right energy, mom will always let it. And that's what we get for watching mothers in their litters and how they act consistently. And then we can do that same thing because that's how a pack of dogs will teach another dog. It's always the same thing. And it's just a matter of, you can't touch me if your energy's not right. And that's where space is respect, principle number one. And if you've been invited into my space and I don't care for your energy right now, then I'm not touching you, right? And you do those things and you make it a little bit more transactional than it was before, and you will have, as we can see, a result pretty darn immediately. Now, the oxytocin pathway with physical affection doesn't happen right away. It's not a really loud signal to the brain. It's a very slow, subdued signal that changes over a course of time. So it's important to be consistent with it. But when it does finally change, you become insulated from the problem. So it's like having a savings account. It's like, how do you buy a house? Well, you save up money, right? Well, I saved money yesterday. Why don't I have a house?
Yeah.
Like, that's silly because it doesn't work like that. And that's the way it works with the oxytocin. This is like, as you continue to build that oxytocin up, it buffers them against anxiety, against depression, against addictive behaviors, against mania, against bipolar, against ADD, against all these different things. So we are helping our dog by petting them. And that's a wonderful, good thing to know. And a lot of people, I think if everybody out there knew that it worked consistently like this every single time, that's how I rehabilitate the worst dogs in the world. This is because I understand the oxytocin pathway. And it's not a big deal. And it's something that everybody knows inherently. They understand it themselves. You know, if your grandson comes in and he's acting like he's just anxious above all things, you know, and he's neurotic and nervous and everything like that, you kind of sit back, you know, and then you sit him down, you talk to him, and then as soon as he's like, oh, well, I'm just having struggles with this and everything, and he kind of gives up a little bit of that, and he opens up and he becomes vulnerable and everything, then you go over there and you give him a hug. And we do these things naturally. We just don't know that we're doing them. Yeah. It's just instinct. And so what we want to do is we want to not outthink ourselves and make sure that we're just doing them purposefully. So that okay, that right there, first of all, is mostly play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there was anything really
Oh, no.
particularly wrong. However, she's not allowed to treat you that way.
I know.
Right? So what we need to do is we need to get a situation where we need to figure out how to be able to express to her that that's not allowed.
Okay.
Right? And we'll get there. And that is where I think that if you did, if you did like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? If you kept the cane around as a matter of like, I just keep it with me type of thing, then you have a tool that can do that and can do it safely, since it's my understanding that she got a little nippy one time when she was anxious.
Well, when she saw Ezra.
Oh, right.
She did break skin. It was small next to a fingernail, but she definitely broke skin.
And Ezra knows how to handle these things. He's got a lot of instinct. I think Ezra has a tendency to be a little too patient with dogs as well and everything. And that's a great thing for a dog groomer. You know, don't get it twisted.
Because he's good.
Because Ezra's a good dog groomer. I have respect for him. It's not the only way. I think that there is a matter of running a very successful business by being overly compassionate, and 95% of the time it works fantastic, and then 5% of the time, if you lose those clients, you're still in business, right? So that works. But my mom was the one who groomed all the dogs that nobody could groom, and it was because she was the exact opposite, and she was patient, but she was patient with information, and the information of like, that's not allowed, you know, is something that you want to be able to, because we want to motivate our dogs both positively and negatively. If you do just one or the other, life gets very confusing, right? If you only tell somebody what's good, then, you know, like if I didn't tell you that her jumping on you uninvited was a bad thing, and you felt like it was permissive, and then I left and you go to apply the things that I told you did right, but you didn't avoid the things that I tell you did wrong, you would not have success, and it would become very confusing, and you'd probably think I was a horrible trainer, and I would be, because I don't say this is what we don't need, right? Does that make good sense? I'm probably belaboring points a little bit too much.
Well, that's just I think I have allowed her to do too much of that with the lap, but my last dog never ever got on a lap.
Right.
It was hard to pick her up. She was in pain when her stomach, I think when she was spayed, they messed up somewhere, but so she didn't really like to be picked up, and she didn't jump. So no getting on furniture, no getting on lap, no getting on bed, no nothing.
Right.
No playing with toys, all the things I missed.
Right.
So when this one came along, I allowed everything.
You compensated.
Yes, I did.
So, and that happens all the time, and that's one of those things that
No.
That's one of those things that I notice a lot with rescue dogs, is people feel sorry for the rescue dog, and so then they compensate by being too permissive. But the thing that helps a dog out is not compensation. There might be a little bit of it, but the idea is that there's a balance point somewhere, and that's where the dog needs to be. Is the dog the dog wants to be and needs to be in balance. And if it's overbalanced this way, and then you counterbalance it the other way, and they end up getting too much, they're just a different kind of imbalance to that point. And so when we have that, what we want to do is we want to think about what is the standard healthy range of something, and we want to just keep them in that. And so if they're too permissive with themselves, we add more negative. If they're not permissive enough, like they're really tentative and scared, and they refuse to act because they're too frightened and everything, then we add a lot of encouragement. Now, I just so happen to get called about all of the ones on the one side, you know, and that's typically what it is. And so when people watch me, it seems like I'm just about negativity and I'm just about correction and everything. It's just that's usually where the problem lies, because there's not a whole lot of people out there that are overly harsh with their dogs, because people love dogs.
Right.
And if they don't love dogs, they don't have them, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I am curious. A lot of times when I reach over to pet her, not now, but a lot of times when I reach over to pet her, or if I'm getting her leash out or something like that, she backs up.
Mhm.
As if I'm gonna hurt her, and I don't ever hurt her.
It-
And it's like, why does she do that? Is she automatic reflexes?
so
To jump back like I'm gonna hurt her.
So that's another misnomer that people have, is that a dog becomes skittish and running away from somebody hurting them. And that is actually most of the time not the case. They're usually skittish and running away because people have been overly permissive with them.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. So what that is that's I don't want this right now, and so I'm going to do what it takes to make it not happen. You know, it's a dominant behavior, even though it's running away. And that's where a lot of people don't understand dominance, is they think that dominance is all about being pushy and forceful and aggressive and things of that nature. And that's not,
No,
that's
no.
just a portion
No,
of
no.
it.
No.
Like a stand-up comedian is a highly dominant person. And they're not aggressive. They're comical. They use a different tool to assert their will on people. They use charm, you know?
Mhm.
And my aunt, God bless her, she is she is one of those fantastic beta type people, and what that is that person who says, "Oh, I just can't do this. I just couldn't possibly accomplish this myself,"
Mhm.
and everything, and then everybody rushes in to help them. And so she gets what she wants by being pitiful, you know, and so and people take care of her, right? That's dominance. And it's not aggressive at all, because she has the demeanor of the sweetest person, right? And she's very accommodating, and she's very, you know, like, and she's very she's non-confrontational. So confrontation is not all about dominance. Is not all there is to say about dominance, and that's where Americans tend to get that wrong.
Mhm.
Is they don't look at the sweet and the you know, and even the fearful looking behaviors. Now, a dog that has been physically reprimanded a lot and everything generally won't do the runaway thing. They usually will lay down and give you access to them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I've seen people go the other way. You know, like, I was raised out in the country, and sometimes you run into those old farm boys that they're just like, "Oh no, I just beat the snot out of the dog, and then the dog minds me." And it does actually technically work. You know, like, if you're talking about results, it happens. And it happens pretty darn consistently, honestly. It's like they get after it one time, very intense, and the dog just gives them all the respect all the time. And that's not even a good thing, you know? It's like, you don't want the dog to give you too much respect either, because then that can become a dangerous thing, but we don't need to get into that. So when we want to change behaviors, there's a spectrum of consistent and intense. And the dog needs somewhere in there. But the more consistent you can be, the less intense you need to be. And that's where me coming in and just making postural things, if I do it consistently enough, then she doesn't need to be addressed harshly.
Mhm.
Right? And that's what we want. Because I don't want you guys to have to wrestle with her.
No, I
That's
don't.
that's not good for the system. So what I would rather is that we just create simple, easy to enforce rules that make the most difference, and then the dog starts treating you as if you're a person that needs to be treated with respect, and they'll do it. Because if you think about the person you respect the most, not necessarily the person you like the most, but the one you respect the most, it's always a very consistent person. I've never had anybody argue with me about that.
No, consistency is so important.
Right. And so if you want your dog to respect that consistency, it doesn't have to be consistent on every single thing. It just has to be consistent on some things. Right? And so the first one is always the space. The space, if you handle the space conversation with the dog, everything else falls in line really quickly, really easily, really low impact.
Wow.
And we can see it happening. It's not a myth. It's happening. Right? So that's that. So we want to pay attention to our personal space. We want to pay attention to her energy, whether we pet her or don't pet her, because, and we know that that's actually communicating, and we know what it's communicating now. If I pet you, it means I like your energy. And if we lie to our dogs and say you're acting like a fool, and so I'm going to pet you till you calm down, that's going to encourage more acting like a fool later, right? And that probably happens routinely and consistently with all the people that she deals with. And that's not new. It's not special. It's like it happens with most dogs all over the place. Some are just a little temperamentally geared towards that becoming a problem, and some aren't. And whenever you deal with doodles, you never know what kind of temperament you're going to get, because they take every quality. They took two dogs that have the strongest amounts of all sorts of different qualities and mixed them with the opposite. And so you just get what you get with the doodle. Whatever it is, it's going to be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's why I call it the doodle problem. But
Yeah.
but every one of them is smart.
I had no idea until until she started to mature, and it was like, oh my gosh, nobody ever told me that,
Look at the tail going.
Yeah, she's excited. She wants to come over.
Yeah, she does.
She's just like, I don't understand when it's allowed yet. And now I'm going to give her an invitation, and it's going to go well for her. She's going to be able to have as much access as I continue to give her. Good girl. She's a good girl. Sometimes dogs are hesitant with a hand out. So like if I put it closer, you see she's going to become a little bit more brave, because this is a cat.
Mm-hmm.
Cats reach out and hit you with their hands, and that's an instinctual thing. So like a big cat. A big cat is a dangerous animal. You see how she didn't like it when I pet her on top of her head?
And she loves it when we do,
Well, and that's because she is looking at you as no possibility of threat whatsoever. So you petting me on top of my head is something that I will allow, because I have zero concept in my mind that you could ever be resistant to me. And no anxieties whatsoever. She has too little anxiety, right? So now, whenever I go underneath to pet, she will give me. She'll come up and give me access. Whenever I go over the top to pet, that's intimidating. And so we do want to educate people that are dealing with her that you don't pet on top of the head, right? Petting on top of the head is a good way to get bit. It doesn't manifest with a lot of these dogs, because the dogs don't have any idea that there's anything to fear, right? So yeah, see.
Yeah, she doesn't.
Difference.
Oh yeah.
She allows people. She just loves people so much. She allows pretty much everything, and she's not a snapper.
Right.
But you did notice she's a paw dog.
No. Yeah, and that is something that you can choose to allow or not. Depends on how strong the dog is, how much danger there is going to be in her pawing.
No. She talks with her paw.
Yeah. That's just personality. Now, there are some dogs, like I deal with a lot of mastiffs and bullies and things of that nature and everything, and or Danes, whenever they decide to paw you, like you can lose an eye. Like it's not a small issue. And so that's where we talk about in this whole motivation conversation is we want to motivate with three things in mind. We want to motivate according to that personal dog. Right? She's an individual just like you and I are, right? And so if she enjoys something and she doesn't find any sort of problems with it, it will be a reward to her. If she doesn't, then it doesn't matter how we feel about it, what we think the action says, it's not going to work for her. My dog at home, the dog that I have, his favorite game in the world is punch in the mouth. Right?
Oh. Punch in the mouth?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a blue heeler. He's a cattle dog.
Oh, yeah.
He's bred for it. He loves to be rough. He loves to play the in and out game. He loves to kind of come in and pretend like he's healing at me and everything. And so when I invite him to play, I can play that game with him, and he loves it. And it doesn't matter if I punch him in the mouth. He loves it. And now, if I was a fool, then I could say, oh, well, punch in the mouth is a good thing, and it's a reward for the dogs. And I wander around and go punching everybody's dog in the mouth, and I'm going to get strung up by my neck, metaphorically, on the internet, and I'll never have a business ever again, and probably get some criminal charges, right?
Yeah.
So we don't, that's a hyperbole, that's an exaggeration to just show that whatever it is that we think about it doesn't matter. It's how does she feel about it. So some dogs, if they don't like petting, you don't pet them as a reward. Now that's not an issue with her, obviously.
No.
So, but we want to always address the dog according to how she feels about it. So if there's something that we're doing that we're trying to, here, have a treat, have a treat, have a treat, have a treat. And she's like, I don't really want the treat. And you finally get her to take it. It's not been a reward. Now that's been a whole bunch of pressure coming over the top of her, making her anxious. So we just pay attention to those things. And this is just part of the common speech that I give every time. So that doesn't really apply a ton here because she seems like a pretty normal dog. So that first bit is we want to motivate according to this individual dog. We want to motivate according to the situation as well. Because right now, if I put her on a leash, she's probably not going to pull anybody over. But in the situation where she pulled you over, there was a lot of excitement happening.
Yes.
And so when trying to change the way she behaves in those really exciting situations, the intensity with which we communicate with her goes up in order to change her behavior, right? If we want to discourage that pulling, if we're out in the middle of a field and there's nothing going on and there were no smells, if that was even possible, then it might not be a big issue. When we're in the living room, she's probably not going to pull anybody over on a leash because there's just not that much going on. There's nothing that she's motivated toward. So we don't need to be that negative. So it's good to learn in spaces. Now you notice that me just looking now is causing her to back off.
She backed off from
So you see how quickly I get to be as gentle as possible, right? I don't have.
Yeah.
It doesn't have.
No,
to
you
be.
don't have to do much.
Right. So that's the thing. And so if we're going into a situation where there's going to be a lot of excitement and there's going to be a lot of potential pulling and everything, we need to have the tool available that is going to give us the power to stop the behavior if it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's not necessary, the fact that they're wearing it means nothing. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. And so I have a tendency to use, with dogs that pull, a tool that looks like this. And you offered to go buy one, and I wanted to make sure that you didn't go buy one because I don't want you to get the wrong one, number one. But it's one of these nasty looking things. They're not that nasty, but they look nasty. And this is one of those things that people get stirred up about. If I can find the one I was looking for. Yeah, this one will do just fine. This is not going to be the one we use on her because it's too big. And in fact, I don't really have one that's the right size, but I can go get you one.
Yeah, Ezra recommended.
So, but yeah, this is not a choke. This is a prong, right? And it's a different thing. So the reason we use a prong, let's see if they can see. The reason we use a prong is whenever this thing is sized properly. Number one most important thing, it must be sized properly. I put this amount of pressure on it, I can feel that on my leg. I can tell that there's something different happening. If I put this amount of pressure on it, I can feel that and it feels different, right? But whenever it's loose, it doesn't move around. It stays where it's supposed to, but there's no difference. Now, if my hand, which is representing the leash, stays tight, and my leg all of a sudden wants to jump, it tightens whether I think about it or not. So there's information in this thing. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, there's no pain. It's not pleasant. Nobody likes to have pressure, but there's nothing unpleasant about it, and there's nothing damaging or harmful. The other good part about it is when you pull, it's not squeezing here. It's squeezing around the entire circumference. So this is actually the collar that will damage your dog the least if they decide to
So that
pull
goes
against
around their neck.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it damages the dog the least because it constricts all the way around the circumference and distributes all of that evenly, right? The prongs are even set wide so that the distribution of that pressure is actually this wide.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same as one of those big fat collars, except for those big fat collars still will put pressure in like one side of the collar or the other. So this is actually the safest tool out there for your dog. And it also is one of the tools that has the greatest amount of information in it. Because if the dog acts and you are not the most perfect trainer in the entire world and all you do is just stand still, the dog still learns the idea of if I push this boundary, I get a response. And I get the response consistently every single time, always. So what happens is very quickly the dog learns, I just don't test the boundary. I pay attention to where my owner is, and I don't pull. I don't reach the end of the leash at all. Because when I do, there's a consequence for that. And that clear information of this equals this, reaching the end of the leash equals pressure. I don't want pressure. And it happens every single time I reach the end of the leash. So I know how to fix my own problems. As the dog, I know how to fix my own problems. I'm in control of my destiny. I can just avoid the end of the leash and not pull against it. And therefore, I don't end up having a problem. So you have this perfect situation where the dog gets to learn something and use it and apply it and make their life better. And if you are the worst handler in the world and all you do is just hold on, you're good to go, right? So that's why I always suggest these things for people. And yes, they look awful. People don't like seeing them, and there's going to be folks out there that are going to give you grief about it and everything.
You got one of them on your dog?
Yeah, you just tell them to ask me. I will go and have a conversation, and then I'll.
No, I'm way beyond that.
Yeah.
I'm so desperate to be able to get her outside
This one is
normally.
smaller, right? So
She does have a habit when you have her on the leash and you're gonna walk. She'll stand. She'll go for a minute and then she takes off 90 miles an hour.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She lunges.
well,
Yeah.
and
that's when you go
and that will give her a proportional correction. If she hits the end of the collar harder, it's not the same correction as if she just barely hits the end of the collar. And that's one of those things. And so they also learn intensity. Because if there's no intensity difference,
That looks pretty big.
it is big. This is not going to be the right size, but we could probably have some things. We could probably see some results with it here quickly. Because we've talked already about how to get a dog to go away from you, how to give you space. Now we need to also talk about how to get a dog to come with you. Because that whole pulling away from you and running away thing is also not
I've
acceptable.
always had dogs that I could just say heel and they did.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, I didn't do anything special. I just told them to heel and they did.
She's a good girl. All right. So now with this one, and I don't know that we have the right size. Again, the size will be important. They have this big, this band with a clip on it.
Oh,
And
okay.
and are you okay with this?
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So it's got a clip on it, so it's really easy to get on and off. You can actually slide it over their head instead, right? So now this is probably not. Yep, we'll get away with it for today, right? And so now I'm going to give you guys a warning on this one. The first time a dog encounters this, sometimes they get a little panicky about it,
Yelp.
right? So, but don't worry about that. I've done this more than 1,000 times, and it always works out. The way that it doesn't work out is if we, the one holding the leash, are reactive to it, and we get too sympathetic to the dog, and we relieve the pressure from them freaking out. Because now they learn freaking out is the way that I get out of this pressure, right? And so I'm going to get a leash out of here, or a really great big leash.
I've got that up there, if that works.
So here's what's going to happen. We're going to put this one on here. And this one is really long. Right?
Is it?
Yeah.
See, I just bought the rope type one because I have more control than I do with the...
Did you see that she just hit the end of it and it squeezed a little bit and she gave to the pressure immediately?
No, I didn't notice.
So when this happens, just let me see.
It's okay.
See the stop? She stopped. And now because she stopped and was calm, I relieve the pressure. Now, a lot of people, when they have emotions about it, don't have the wherewithal to do that right off the bat. So now, the first time she had a little bit of a freak out about it, the freak out part made it a little bit worse. And whenever she went into like sort of shutdown,
Yeah.
you know, and that's extreme language because it wasn't a shutdown, but she decided to stop moving to try and get it to stop, then I relieve the pressure for her. And that's why I always do it the first time. Is because if she is the 1 out of 1,000 dog that really just pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls, it is very difficult to not feel bad for the dog and to give in. But what that is lying. It's like it tells them the way you get out of this is to have a bigger fit, right? And we teach kids that. We teach our dogs that. It's like they have a fit, and you go nope, and then they go but raw, and everything. You go okay. So put that in your mind. If you get to the point where okay is your answer, you're making the wrong decision.
Okay.
Right? And that's it. So what we do is we know ahead of time what it is that is permissible and what's not permissible. We understand how these things are going to go because I've talked you through them and everything. And you decide what the rule is, and then you just wait. You wait yourself through it, and you use patience instead. Right? Here we go. So now we get to talk about moving. Right? Moving is an important thing. Right? So she's going to decide she doesn't want to. And when she decides she doesn't want to, I'm going to let her. There you go. Good girl. All right. I'm going to let her figure it out. And that's what I want to do is I want to let her figure it out. And you got it all mixed up.
We have a lot of that. The
Yeah.
rope one is not as bad as the I have one of these.
Right.
And I gave up on this because this just doesn't have the control I need. So I bought her the rope one.
Flexi leashes is what I call them. The retractable leashes are fantastic for expert handlers and dogs that are already trained.
Yeah, Lucy
So
was fine.
once
Ellie's
she's already
not.
trained and you want to go using that, fine. But that's why I teach you guys, and that's why I actually I have in history provided these big old long leashes, because eventually what we want to do is we want to give the dog some space, but we also don't want to have an inconsistent tool such as that. The other problem with that is that it always puts a little bit of pressure. So you're always just a little bit lying to your dog, right? Not much,
Yeah.
but and that's in given my understanding of the situation is the way that I think about it is you're always telling the dog you're doing a little bit wrong whenever it's walking around on the leash, so they learn to ignore pressure on the leash. And we don't want them to ignore pressure. We want them to think about it and treat it as if it's good information. So now
She'd just stand there that whole time with her head up against his leg.
So now when I have
No.
here,
No.
be careful.
No.
Let me.
Okay.
I just don't want. I don't want her to. Good girl.
See, I know
There
it's.
you go. Good
I know
girl.
that is not going to injure her, but I do know that it will help me have the control I need.
Right, and we're gonna get one that's the appropriate size. But eventually, we get to a really quick point to where she just starts moving with me. And as I walk, I mean, you see this? This is a reasonable, completely acceptable walk.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, like not in 6 weeks whenever we get done with a big expensive training program. And we talk about now.
Oh.
Here, this is great. This is perfect.
Hi.
Go ahead and go.
You were over here.
Yeah.
So we can also teach door behavior. That's one of the things I would like to talk about is like how do we react when the door gets knocked on?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All part of the program.
People!
People.
And we go psycho!
But what happened?
Yeah.
She understands that there's a potential consequence now. And so she's being tentative about it. She's not. Right. So now that, now that I've been here for the better part of an hour, was the first real correction that we've done. Hey,
How did she react to
Hey.
that?
settle it down.
So much better than she normally does.
So we're done.
You
I'm
know
trying to
how
fix it for
cuckoo
you.
crazy she gets
Yeah.
when people come to the door.
Yeah.
She just, and it's not, I'm a vicious, I'm protecting my house thing.
Yeah.
With her, it's, there's
And let
people
me
on
have
the
a
other
look
side
at
of
'em.
that door I want to see.
Yeah, and we can do that right now if you want. If you want to be our victim, then you could go out and knock on the door, and then be given entry because you'll just holler and say, "Come on in,"
I can
and
do
then
that.
beat on the door like you're the police
Okay.
and everything, and then so give it 45 seconds before
Okay.
you come back. Just go out like you're leaving, say goodbye.
She'll bark sometimes.
Bye bye,
but
baby. See
But
you
it's
later.
about barking
Bye-bye.
because I want to see, or even out back if she sees people, she's barking. Not because she's mean. It's like, come over here and play with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now what we're going to see is she's going to come in and she's going to knock on the door and you're going to tell her, go ahead and come in and everything. And then we're going to give her the opportunity to figure it out. And I'm going to do this massively complex thing.
Okay.
And you just watch and see what it is.
All right.
So anyway, we're going to continue to talk as if we're doing our own thing right now. Tell her to come in.
Come in.
Callie, are you home? She stood there.
Just come in and be normal. All right, so you see the massively complex thing that I did?
You held the leash behind her.
I stayed still.
And
I did
stayed
nothing.
still.
I did nothing. And that's what works. And that's what's the difference is because now she gets to understand, and now that she's acting calm, go ahead and give her your hand.
Come here.
Good girl.
Yeah, it's my
Now
baby.
she's acting calm, then we pet her, right? And so it's just rinse and repeat. So if one time out of 1,000, that's the way she learns to treat the situation, she's not going to get it. But if it's the next 10 times out of 10, or maybe even the next 3 times out of 3, now it starts to become 100% of the time. So what we do is we change and we do the exercise as a matter of training and say this is how we respond to doors. And I did it by doing nothing, by just holding onto the leash. Speaking of holding onto the leash, and especially since we have mobility and falling as a matter of like that's possible for it to happen, what I want to talk to you guys about is how do we hold the leash? This, no go. That's how you get that situation.
I don't do that.
Right.
No.
So what I
200.
no, what so one of the things that I do, first of all, if I do two-handed, if I want to give her a whole bunch of leash all of a sudden, that's all I got to do. And if I want to retract the leash, put my hands together and I shorten the leash. And this is trainer stuff that they made us practice all the time. Is that we would walk and then I would try to make it to where my leash doesn't touch the ground. I don't expect you guys to do all of that.
Girl, she's just.
Right, she's moving with me. Right, because there's clear information. Now, understand that information is information I've been giving her 100% of the time that I've been here. So it has to do with me. And I'm going to show you guys, and now you guys actually have a harder task of changing her mind about what you expect. I've expected the same thing every minute that I've been here. Every minute that she's ever known me. So now you guys have to use these same things, and you got to stick with it. Because there are going to be times that it doesn't go the same way. But we can see that it does work, right? It's not going to be a huge, big issue because she's a gentle, sensitive dog. She's not going to need a ton of reinforcement. But what we want you guys to do is for the next little while is to set some rules in place on whatever you choose to change now, and you make it 100% for a short period of time until she stops needing your input, right? So if the leash is on and the door is knocked, and every time she runs to go jump on whoever comes in the door, she hits the end of the leash and she has to turn around and sit with you. It'll only be 3 times, if even that she starts realizing that that's not the way I behave because there's a consequence to it, right? And then for the next 7, you probably won't be. It will probably get boring because it's just not going to happen. So all you do is you just make sure you have the security in place. To even if I'm not paying any attention, the same thing is being communicated to the dog, and you do some repetitions, and you call before you come over each time, or send a text message or whatever you do. You announce that you're coming over. You put the leash on her and the collar and everything, and then you come over and you beat on the door like it owes you money, and and then you come in and you can be all the energy you want at that point because she can't make a mistake without communicating. And it's not that we don't want her to make mistakes. We just don't want her to make mistakes and get the wrong information.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you come in and you're like, oh my gosh, did you see this? Whatever. I don't care. Because the more unreasonable you're being, and she still has to be reasonable in everything, the greater the training. Right? So the first time we don't want to do it hard. We want to do it, we make it nice and easy for her. I wanted you to knock on the door hard because I wanted you to see right off the bat that it's not a matter of you being extra, as they say. It's this just works. So you can do this. Now, to finish what I was saying about holding the leash, this right here, this grip, pinching between my thumb and my forefinger like this, with the leash just resting in my hand, not this. You can close your hand, I don't care, but don't squeeze with your pinky or any of your other fingers. You're just pinching between these two right here is one of the strongest grips you can have on a flat leash like this whatsoever. And it's very, very difficult to lose your grip. If you're going to lose your grip on that, you're probably going to lose your grip in any situation, and you're also going to fall back. Right? So I would much rather we risk the idea that she gets off the leash or the leash hits. And so, like, imagine she's on this collar and she pulls this clean out of my hand. Whenever she hits the impact that pulls it out of my hand, it will address her collar. And so she's getting the information. So you can still hold on to this, and the chances that she's going to do it twice in a row and not give up,
Not good.
is almost zero.
Yeah.
So I would much rather you pinch the leash as opposed to grip it, right?
Yep.
So
One hand grips, but not the one that I would use the closest to her.
yeah, use your strongest hand closest to her, and then the other one, hold on to it. And honestly, if she is going so hard at something in a situation like that, that she's going to pull it out of both of your hands, I'm sorry, she's a dog, you're a human being. I will not apologize for this. I think you're more valuable. Your health and safety is more valuable than her, than whatever it is that she's about to get into, right? There's very few exceptions, and some of those exceptions involve, like, if another dog was coming hard at her and she was trying to run away, I don't want to hold her close unless I can address that other dog properly.
Yeah.
If I can address that other dog, then I don't want my dog getting away. If I cannot, because I'm not physically capable of fighting another dog, I would much rather her have the ability to run. You know? So there's really very, very few situations where you losing control of the leash after pulling through two separate hands, that you still need to hold on to that dog, and you're going to do that dog any service. We accept the fact that it might be one of those things where the dog gets loose and she goes and hides somewhere, and you call somebody to come help you gather her back up.
She's not a runaway type dog.
I don't think she is either. And I don't think this will ever come about.
Yeah.
That's why I'm just saying it to convince you. Don't tie yourself to your dog.
And the majority of the time, there are no other dogs.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of
Well,
dogs
and I
around.
think that as we, if we decide to go forward anything past this lesson, that what we ought to do is we ought to go find some other dogs, or I'll bring one, right? And we'll start to see what it looks like with a little bit of interaction, because it's good to know those things. But I'm not putting that on you. I'm just saying that would be one of the few things that.
Well, I've been wanting to take her over to
do.
my daughter's pit bulls. One of them has been here.
Yeah.
And they got along beautifully. But my kids, one has a Great Pyrenees mix and one has two pit bulls. And
Good.
the problem we've been having is that she's been too cuckoo crazy for those dogs.
Yeah.
And so they've been like, you know, if she irritates them too badly, we don't know what the response is going to be.
Right. And so, number one, tell them how well this went.
Yeah.
And if I need to go over there and have a talk and have a lesson with them and everything, that's how my business runs. Is because I don't really want to extract the most money out of one person. I want to make the most amount of good dog owners. And I got a 2-for-1 special today, so thank you. Right? So,
Well, The oldest
That was a
pit bull
commercial I
is
just
going.
did, just so you guys know, because it's being recorded.
The oldest pit bull has been through training
Uh-huh.
classes, and she could actually be a caregiver.
Mhm.
Like she would walk beside me, so I could hold on to, I could lean on her back
Great.
to walk with me,
Mm-hmm.
and she will guide me with her mouth.
Yeah.
Big jaw like this, and she'll
I
put
love bulls.
my arm in her mouth and take me places.
Yeah.
Without ever putting pressure. She's fantastic.
If you guys want to look it up and you want to sit around and do some very interesting reading, there's a website out there called Outlaw Cane Corso. It's the name of a dog breed, a very, very big, powerful Italian war dog from the 1st century.
Wow.
And there's a guy who was contacted by this company that breeds these Cane Corsos, and he did his doctorate. He got a full PhD in history, but it's in the breed and only the breed of Cane Corso. And so he literally got a doctorate in a dog breed, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
But he basically put his entire dissertation about all of the research that he found about Cane Corsos in there. But it talks a lot about Mastiff and catch dogs, which is what that would be. Those big, giant, wide dogs that have very gentle mouths whenever they choose to and everything. And there's some cool stuff about that. I'll
Oh,
let
she
you
could be
look
a
into it.
vice if she wanted to. but
Right.
She will never.
Right. And that's part of the breed characteristic.
And
for-
she will jump up and put her paws on my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And keep all of her weight on her back legs.
Yeah.
And they get scared every time I come over because she'll jump up on me. And they're like, oh. And it's like, I'm not scared. Her weight's back here. She never puts any weight on me.
So that was actually a point that I missed on my little thing about motivation. We do want to motivate the dog according to the individual dog. We want to motivate according to what the situation is. But the third one is we want to motivate according to what the situation can become, right? And that is usually one of those situations where I tell everybody else about the risk of a person falling. And I use my grandmother as an example. She's 93. And I don't care if a dog jumps on me at all. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't bother me a bit. I always, 100% of the time, do not allow them to do it. And the reason is because if this was my dog and it was one day going to meet my grandmother, everything, she falls down, we lose grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the things that we want to pay attention when we establish the rules with the dog, including the service dog, unless it is specifically needed to jump on people every single time, which I can't think of one reason.
Oh.
I can't think of one reason why that would be necessary. Then we don't allow it, or we only allow. Well, we only
That's a
allow
good
it.
point.
We only allow it on invitation. So if you get yourself steadied and everything, you say, "I want this dog to jump on me." I don't care if a Dane jumps on somebody that is inviting them. But that's the difference. It's like she wasn't allowed to come to me until I invited her, and I invited her with body language. So if I want her to
Just sitting there.
come here, baby, come on. If I wanted her to jump up on me, I can invite her to do so. Come here. Hey, you're just not sure yet. That's okay. You don't have to jump on me if I invite you. Come on.
It's amazing.
Come here.
Yeah.
So the other good thing about these long leashes is just step on it. Come here.
Yeah.
Yes. You were ready. You're almost there. You're almost there. Anyway, point being is like it's not about whether or not it's not about the action being right or wrong. It's about when is it allowed. And it is allowed. Like I let her kiss me in the face, because I don't care. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
But
I
if
don't
she
either.
walked up and tried to kiss me in the face without me inviting her to do so, I wouldn't allow it. And that's just all it is like these behaviors, if there's any risk to them, then we don't allow them until we've asked. And then I try to make sure that I ask them to do these things in certain times so that I can put a name to it. I can put a signal to it, something like that. Like if I do the pat and the chest thing, all of my dogs will jump on me. And I do that as a matter of, if I put my hand out and everything, all of my dogs will paw at my hand. Because I teach it as now's the time to do it. And then whenever they do it another time, I tell them no.
Mm-hmm.
And so they learn that you do it whenever you're requested, and you don't do it otherwise, and that's how you have a nice manners, right? And it's not. It doesn't have to be that complicated.
No, she's
that's what
surprising me though.
She's
Right.
amazing. I mean, look at her.
I know.
Yeah, and
Did
it's,
you think? I mean, the way she has been just so out of control. I thought she would be one of your tougher.
Yeah.
No. I work with the hardest dogs. I'm the one whenever 7-10 trainers fail, they bring them to me and then we succeed. And that's it's just because I don't think like a trainer. I think like a behaviorist. I think like a dog. And I communicate with people that same way. You know, like even still, it's like I'm sitting here bragging on myself, but I put my hands behind my back, and I have my shoulders forward, just to let you know that I'm just being matter of fact. I'm not trying to brag. That's not the point. The point is that these things all can be done, and you can rest assured you've come to the place that will get it done, and you can see that obviously. And that's
why I called you.
That's the point. And it doesn't need to be. And eventually we get to a point to where the dog starts walking with you.
Look at this.
Yeah. And this is not rocket science. It's just if we operate on the wrong assumptions, we'll get wrong answers. Good girl.
Well,
And if we operate on right assumptions, we get right answers. Because the thing
behavior is my whole thing anyway, because of the fact that I have some very extreme autism in the family that, you know, it's like if something is not understood well or whatever, the child doesn't, out of frustration, doesn't know how to react.
Right.
And nobody understands how to de-escalate.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's
Amazing.
like a blow
You're
up.
amazing.
So can I elaborate on that? I've trained a handful of service dogs for autism, right? And I've done a lot of work with autistic kids. And one of the first service dog for autism that I did it without as much knowledge. I mean, we were training specific tasks. We were making a dog that behaves, and we were trying to solve very specific problems, which makes it a service dog. But the dog had enough sense about it that it did about a dozen different services for that people without me even having to train it. We just trained it on the one task, which makes it legal, and then it was a service dog. But I sent it back, and I went to educate the owner about it, and she had a 3-year-old boy who had pretty serious autism, like a reasonable case. It wasn't mild, and I start telling her about the ways that we make sure that we communicate properly and consistently and everything. And she told me, everything you've ever said about this is exactly what the people who helped me communicate with my autistic son. So
Yeah, exactly. It's all behaviorism.
communicating with dogs and communicating with autism are almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I just discovered. I didn't
Yeah.
come with that information. I found it out and I learned it from the process.
Well, he's leaving
Because-
that school and going to a behavioral school next year.
Right.
Well, where he'll get more one-on-one because of the fact that, and you would never know it if you met him today. You go, such an intelligent kid and so polite,
Mm-hmm.
I was
so
shocked
loving,
when she
so
told me.
sweet. And you know what? All you got to do is if you see what's coming on and he's doing this or whatever, take him outside, let him run around the track 4 or 5 times. The kid is so fast, and it's like, and that'll just take all the wind out of those sails. I mean, it's just, you know, but instead they lock him in a room.
Right.
And it's like, you people are idiots, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and
Sorry, I'm off
they're
track.
at least ignorant,
Mm-hmm.
and so there are different things. So whenever your stimulation goes up, there are ways to handle that. We've talked about brain chemicals a lot and everything,
Yeah.
and I sometimes avoid it because it gets a little technical. But
But it's exactly it.
there are 4 main kind of brain chemicals. We have oxytocin, which we talked about, which is your love, security, family, tribe chemical. It says I'm part of a group, I'm accepted, I'm of the right standing, I'm being good. Great.
Now, the second one is serotonin, and serotonin is I do good things. Like, I am an accomplished, proud individual. And the serotonin is the one that they give you for antidepressant, right? It's because if you feel real good about yourself, you're generally not depressed. Now, oxytocin's a better one for depression, but they don't prescribe that because I don't know that they actually really want to fix it. You know, I think they just want to mask it and they want to be able to sell you some stuff for a while.
Yeah.
Right? And oxytocin will get rid of it for a long term and it will kind of go away and it doesn't need to be reapplied. And so therefore it's not as good of a business model. So we talked about dopamine, which is your short-term gratification that helps you remember how to do good actions. Right? So it's more of the beginning.
No. Get down. Get down.
And then you have endorphins. And endorphins is what you get from exercise. And endorphins are literally painkillers. So, and painkillers are one of those things when people get super anxious, like drug addicts, because like, first of all, I know a lot about addiction recovery. When people start getting really anxious, they will take pain meds. And it's like, it's not, because what people don't realize is anxiety and pain are the same thing to your brain. There's no difference. Zero difference. Especially for dogs. It's way more so for dogs. So whenever a dog starts getting anxious and they start getting hyperactive because of it, you can recognize sometimes that this is not a behavior problem. This is an anxiety issue. The dog feels anxious. And so they sometimes will run that out. The problem with it is whenever you have a dog that gets rambunctious and medicates themselves to the point that they're now happy from doing physical activity, number one, they get more energy because they're fit. They're more fit than they were before. So this problem continues to rise. And number two, they also learn to not hate their anxiety so much. And so they're more willing to go back into it. So I do admit that what you're talking about will, in a moment, solve that, help with the freakouts, you know, with the meltdowns and everything. But there is a more permanent solution that will reduce the amount of meltdowns. And that is, it has to do with energy sharing. So the way I would approach that situation is I do what I like to call energy sharing, right? The dominant animal is the one who decides to bring their own energy to the room. And no matter what anybody else's energy is, theirs doesn't change, right? So if I decide to bring a quality of, say I wanted to bring a quality of attentiveness, engagement to this situation. And like, I'm one of those people where whenever I get laid back in my chair, I'll fall asleep. I don't care what's going on. You could have war movies on in the background and I'll fall right out. Man, it's great. You know, but if I wanted people to be engaged with me, then one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to be very engaging. And the interesting thing about it is me as an individual, whenever I talk to people and I talk with them, I almost always look at their mouths.
Really?
And I know it's actually rude, I think, some people take it as rude, but whenever I'm teaching and I'm engaging in the situation, I always look you guys in the eye. And I just realized this, like right now, that whenever I want to be engaging, I come with engaging energy. And if I want you guys to be attentive to me, then I'm very attentive to you, right? And that's what we do with energy sharing. So if I want an animal to be calm, I'm going to be calm. If I want an animal to be secure, I'm going to be secure. But so like if I want something to not be afraid, and somebody bursts in the door, and the dog goes, "Ah!" and then I go, no. What kind of energy am I putting out? I'm putting out something has gone awry and everything is going crazy. Yeah. Now, if somebody bursts in the door with an assault rifle in their hand, and I'm standing right here and it happened, and somebody bursts in the door with an assault rifle in their hand, and I just kept teaching you guys about dog training, and I'm just like, give us a second. And I just kept engaging with you, and then they came up and they put the thing in my face and everything, and I'm just like, all right, I'll be right with you. You guys would be like, this guy is in
complete control, and you will be much less anxious than you would have been if I had been like, oh shoot, we're being robbed. You know? And that's what we talk about with energy sharing. Is if I want the dog to be anything, I start by being it. And I share my energy. And if I'm dominant and I'm in control of my emotions, and I decide I'm bringing calm energy, like whenever my wife comes in and she's really upset about something, and she's anxious about talking to me about it because she thinks I'm going to get upset, one of the ways I fail her is by getting upset. That's one of the ways that I fail her as a husband. Is because she comes in and she's like, I think that you did this because you wanted this to happen and everything. And I go, no! and then she no longer gets to feel safe in conversations with me, right? Now, take that same situation, and she comes in and she's like, I think that you're a jerk. And because of this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. And I go, okay, well, let's sit and explore those and see if we can find a solution to it. You guys are ladies. Which husband do you want?
Always the one. Yeah.
Always the second, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Is like if you're having trouble with being anxious about something, and you stand in the presence of somebody who you cannot make anxious, and who will stay steady and calm and everything, your energy will become steady and calm eventually. And if I can manage to do that whenever my wife is having struggles and everything like that, it sinks and her energy starts to follow mine. And whenever I fail it, it blows up, and I get what I deserve. You know, I get what I
Good
deserve
girl.
by not being steady.
Good girl.
So,
Did you see what she did a minute ago?
with the jumping, what?
She wanted
Yeah.
to come over here, but she was worried about it pulling.
Mhm.
So she put the leash in her mouth and brought her over.
Smart dog. Nope.
No.
But we just have some
So-
situations, but I guess the behavioral thing is such a big issue in my brain right now because of what I'm dealing with one of the grandchildren, that it's like, I so get it with her now.
Okay. Right.
You know?
And so all of those things. So with the meltdown, what I would do is I would have just come over, and they're doing the rocking thing, and I would have just sat here.
Yeah. Well,
And I know that seems impossible sometimes. But-
he's got a para that has a phone in his face all day long, and so doesn't even see.
That's troublesome. Because
Yeah.
phones cause stimulation.
Well,
And
and
they cause
phones should
near
never
con-
be in a classroom.
Right. Yeah, that's
So-
one of the things I don't agree with the school system using tablets and all of that stuff right now. It's like, I think that having access to them is fine, but if it is like your station, you know, even office work, it's a really hard thing to deal with. It's like you go work in an office all the time, and you get anxious around your computer.
Oh, yeah.
This is not me being weird. This is measurable things.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do, just like I did whenever I came in, this is like the dog was acting crazy. Whenever I came in and everything, I did not let it affect me in any way, shape, or form. I addressed things calmly the way that they were coming at me, to the degree that was necessary, and then I just stood still. And I continued to address the minimal necessary with the calmest energy possible. And you see, right off the bat, she is secure right now. She feels very secure. And she's wandering around getting just as much attention and affection as she would get.
Yeah.
But she's getting it under the right circumstances, and it's no longer a problem that she's getting it. Now it's a good thing that she's getting it, because we're not telling her, I like your manic energy. We're telling her, I like your calm energy. And that will continue to produce calm energy. The more we pet that energy, it will tell the brain, produce more of this energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then these things go away. And you get to the point where, like, I keep giving her affection in different ways, and I start
I'm dirty
messing.
dog. I need a bath.
No, you're not nearly as dirty as all my
Did you tell
dogs.
him how she is when you walk over to my place?
Oh,
Halfway.
out of fear, I usually 90%. With that, I do okay, and I do double grip it. But half the time, I just look to see how the traffic is, and I let her off the thing and let her run over to Carol's, because it's less dangerous for me.
She sees me sitting
That
there.
might be
in those circumstances, with the information that you had, that might have been a good decision, and that's fine.
For the time being,
For the
but
time
it's
being.
not what I want.
Now we don't need that.
Yeah.
Because right now you can walk her over to her house.
Yeah.
Usually dogs pulling her. I say, unleash her. Man, she right up on me, almost knocks me backwards, you know.
But we saw it fixed
Mhm.
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Yep.
And she, even with the
It's
amount
what
of
I wanted.
even with the amount of apprehension that she had over me in the beginning, but you notice that the more times that I overcame her, the more comfortable she's gotten with me.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah, she's
another
gotten
misnomer.
Very comfortable
That's
with
another
you.
misnomer that people have, is they think that somebody being dominant around a dog is going to make them skittish and uncomfortable, and it doesn't.
Oh, no,
It makes them feel
it
makes them feel secure, because when I'm here,
Whoops.
as I'm here
Sorry.
in this particular context, she's like, this place is in control now because he's here, and now I get to be a free dog, I get to be a healthy dog, I get to be a stable dog. And that feels better to her, and she realizes she has nothing to fear from me, but she also knows that I've overcome her in every one of these situations. So the idea that if something else came in here and tried to overcome me, that I would win because I've won every time with her.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that I would continue to win if something became hostile to us is higher, and you guys probably would feel the same way if somebody did come in the door and was trying to be aggressive towards you guys would probably feel better that I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And there's nothing to say about that aside from this is the way that our brains work. And so we get to produce that for our dogs. And the thing about it is it's not variable. It works. Period.
No.
So now one of the things that we want to talk about is how to correct little things like that. First of all, I want to that she was chewing on the leash. Was that what was going on?
Yep.
Right? First of all, I want to start paying attention at the very beginning. Now that means we need to do this consistently. So if I'm paying attention to make sure that she's not going to chew on this thing, then I need to be paying attention when the leash is on. And if I cannot pay attention, then I don't have the leash on. That's one of the consistency principles. We've talked a lot about motivation. We didn't really talk about timing or consistency, which we're going to get into real quick, just so that I can finish off my checklist, make sure you guys have all the principles, right? So second principle is timing. Timing is a one sentence deal. Dogs think we're talking about right now. Always, forever, they always think we're talking about right now. So if you come out of the bedroom and there's poop on the floor over there, and you go over there and she's laying on this, and you grab her by her collar and you take her over there and you say no next to the poop. She thinks you're mad at her for getting on the couch, and you're using the poop to correct her. And it'll take 30 to 50 times before she realizes that I only get corrected when poop's on the floor. It'll probably take another 30 to 50 times after she figures it out to realize that she can prevent the poop from getting here. So you're talking about 100 corrections. Whereas I have potty trained a dog with one correction for number one and one correction for number two when done in proper timing. So if I correct them in that moment as it's happening, there's nothing else to figure out aside from this action that I'm doing has made my parent go crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to go crazy, so therefore I will not do this action. Right?
I can see this.
And so so if we have the ability to do that and we communicate with them in proper timing, we don't have to be near as harsh. We don't have to be near as consistent even, because it's understood. Once it's understood, then the dog needs to just know that it's important. And you'll go through some repetitions where you have to correct something more than once, even if you correct it in good timing with certain dogs. But long and the short of it's the shortest path to a good dog. That way you don't have to keep being in a bad mood with your dog.
Yeah.
I don't want you guys to be upset with your dog. We go to the negative to keep us in the positive more of the time. That's the point. But if people throw the negative out, then they end up, even though they're trying to never be negative, they end up in negative more of the time because they just lose their patience more. Right? Because they're frustrated all the time, and you have to live in this state of anxiety and tension and resentment and all of that. Nobody wants that. Whereas if somebody say I didn't like being called Lucas and I preferred to be called Luke. It's not the case. I don't care. But if that were the case and it just made me angry, like say I had a bad relationship with my dad and his name was also Lucas, right? And people call me Lucas and I just bit my tongue about it and I didn't say anything about it and I just got grumpier and grumpier and Lucas, why are you doing this? Lucas, why are you doing that? And everything. And then one day I just blow up on them. It's because I wasn't communicating truthfully to them.
Mm-hmm.
I should have just been like, my dad's name was Lucas. We don't get along. I prefer you call me Luke.
Yeah.
Minor correction in the right timing. And I do that every time for 3 or 4 times and then they stop forgetting and then they just call me Luke from then on and then we have happy times. And there's no explosion on the horizon. That's the same thing we do with negative corrections with the dog is we just do them as true feedback for their behaviors till the dog figures out how to live their best life within the parameters of the rules, right?
The potty training, I got her at 2 months. She was born on the 27th of June. I got her on the 15th of August
Mhm.
from a breeder,
Right.
not a puppy mill.
Mhm.
And I didn't have to potty train.
Good.
She kind of just did it
Good.
on her
Well,
own.
she went in the
She's
house
always-
a few times.
Well, she had diarrhea in the house because we had
Which is
diarrhea
a-
problems.
That's
At the
different than
very
that's an accident and not
Not
a
a-
decision.
Exactly.
Right.
She never pooped in the house. She
Good.
never peed in the house. She just had, when she was going through some of her stomach trouble, she had some diarrhea a couple times.
Sure.
But it's like she has never used this house for her bathroom.
That's fantastic.
I don't know why. I mean, she came that way.
Right.
So amazing to me at 2 months old.
So I'm gonna go over some stuff with the door as well.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to hear that, and I'm not trying to be dismissive or anything. But to make sure you guys are getting your value out of this, I want to talk about door behavior. We talk about spacious respect with people, right? And that means that if you're going to be near me, you need to give me a certain amount of space unless I ask you to do otherwise. That's fine. But once I have that respect, I can give that respect to other things, right?
Okay.
So that's an important deal. So, and you notice the stick's got more respect.
Backing up.
The stick has more respect because the stick's less familiar than me. She's had only hesitant relationship with the stick. And so I can do it with and without just to show you that there is not a whole lot of difference. But so the same thing goes with spaces, right? Whenever I was keeping her in that area over there, basically what I was saying is you don't have access to this space, right? And I did that through consistency at that threshold,
Right.
Mhm.
right? And so now I also want to teach that in terms of the door. And I'm going to make your
that's
AC run a little bit through this process, but
Actually, I haven't turned it on, and I need to.
oh,
go.
even better. That's
I need
fantastic.
to go turn off the heat
Mhm.
because I don't have any idea what the temperature is in here, but it
Right.
feels
Just
warm
sit
to
down.
me.
So what I'm going to do is we're going to learn that this door and this threshold right here is mine. It's mine, and it's mine to say whether you get to use it or not.
Mhm.
Saying that to the dog, right? And so the way I do that is I claim it, right? In the same way I claimed you whenever she was jumping on you, and you may not have seen it that way,
No,
but I put the stick in between the two of you
Mhm.
and became a barrier and a boundary, and I addressed her from your perspective out, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And so we want to talk about claiming things as a matter of I want to say something very specific with my posture or an implement or something like that to the dog and make sure that they understand it, right?
Mhm.
So, is there a food thing that she would kind of go nuts for and really, really, really want? That would be the best way to express this. And I'm happy to go get it. I'm very...
Any of the treats that are on the right side of the stove.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Bill Jack. PB bananas. I've used a bunch of these. Oh, this is not open yet.
That's okay. You can rip it open.
All right. These things are delicious for the dogs. They really like
She loves peanut butter.
So,
Any kind of peanut butter.
so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about claiming real quick, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to move the camera just a smidgen so that we all can see this.